In accordance with Section 5 of the Open Public Meetings Act, be advised that a notice of this meeting was made by posting on the bulletin board in Town Hall and forwarding to the officially designated newspapers that this meeting would take place at Town Hall at 7 p.m. on Tuesday, March 5th, 2024. Meeting details and the draft agenda were also posted on our Township website. Please all stand to salute the flag.
To the flag, States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Cohen?
Here.
Ms. Pukas?
Here.
Deputy Mayor Second
Present.
Mr. Stoller?
Present.
Mayor Romano?
Here.
Thank you.
May I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
May I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? No. May I have a motion to approve the February 6th, 2024 regular Township Committee minutes?
So moved.
May I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And may I have a motion to approve the February 6th, 2024 special Township Committee minutes?
So moved.
May I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? May I have a motion to approve the February 20th, 2024 regular Township Committee minutes?
So moved.
May I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
May I have a motion to approve the February 20th, 2024 special Township Committee minutes?
So moved.
May I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Okay, so now we are going to present our Community Service Award to the Interfaith Food Pantry of the Oranges. And I'd like to introduce Laura Janae from the Community Service Award Committee to provide a little bit of background.
I'm gonna stand up there. Okay. I'd like
Just use
all-
the microphone. So.
Oh, sorry. I'd like all my members of the community service just to stand up, just to acknowledge who's on the committee. The Community Service Committee of Millburn Township is proud to award the honor to the Interfaith Food Pantry of the Oranges, which serves to food insecurity residents of Essex County. When I first moved here to town in 2006, I was introduced to this organization through my synagogue. After a few years of living in town, I would periodically volunteer. I was in awe of the number of my fellow residents from Millburn Short Hills who were actively involved in this organization. And I realized this must be a special organization since it attracted so much support from our local town. I also like to honor the founding member, Julie Towell, who is here tonight. Thank you very much for all your efforts in starting this wonderful organization. Our committee is thrilled to recognize this organization for many reasons. We were especially impressed how our Interfaith Food Pantry partners with local houses of worship from all over Essex County and their long-standing relationships with other nonprofit agencies. Their ability to engage Millburn Short Hill residents of all ages demonstrated throughout the district's school districts, helping to provide much needed supplies, including canned goods and cereal drives, and hosting a winter coat drive. This organization represents what our community can do and will do with strength, determination, and commitment. They identified a problem and developed a scalable solution to effectively address it through maximizing existing resources. It is our hope that by honoring the Interfaith Food Pantry of this Oranges tonight, our community will continue to support this impactful organization and publicize the important services they provide. In addition to providing food for 600 families a week, which is an amazing number, this organization led by Kristen Sterling, Jody Cooperman, and many other Millburn Short Hill residents is committed to also ensuring that the families receive holiday gifts, feminine products, diapers, and they even host wellness clinics where clients can assess preventative healthcare options. Please consider donating or getting involved by volunteering. That is our job as the community service, to make people aware that they can actually donate funds or as well as their time, which is important to them. As it is meaningful experience you will never forget. I have been on this community service committee for almost 10 years. And it warms my heart to present this proclamation of the Interfaith Food Pantry on behalf of the Township Committee and the Community Service Committee, because this organization truly makes a difference. Thank you.
Whereas the Milburn Township Committee values the contributions of volunteers in the township and wants to recognize outstanding volunteer efforts that reflect the giving spirit of our community. And whereas the Interfaith Food Pantry of the Oranges was founded 30 years ago by residents of Milburn Short Hills and officially incorporated as an independent 501c3 several years later in 2012. Half of the current board members and many of the core volunteers are also township residents and pride themselves on their unparalleled teamwork and commitment to the organization and the community. And whereas the Interfaith Food Pantry of the Oranges was formed to help meet essential human needs of food insecure Essex County residents with dignity and respect, doing so by delivering their services 39 weeks a year. And whereas, along with many other volunteers, a record 11,000 plus yearly volunteer hours, where volunteers currently serve 600 families a week, providing enough provisions for 25,000 people a year, which doubled during COVID. And whereas the Interfaith Food Pantry of the Oranges has forged and maximized partnerships with local, state, and federal agencies, businesses, corporations, and other nonprofit organizations. In addition to providing sustenance for their clients, Internet IFPO distributes diapers, personal hygiene supplies, and toiletries, and hosts quarterly wellness clinics where clients have access to preventative health care. And now, therefore, I, Annette Romano, Mayor of the Township of Milburn, on behalf of the Township Committee and members of the Milburn community, acknowledge and applaud the continuing efforts of the local volunteers and board members of the Interfaith Food Pantry of the Oranges, who are committed to supporting food insecure families and individuals in Essex County.
Thank you so much. Pick it up. Pick it up.
Thank you to the Milburn Township Committee, as well as the Awards Committee, for recognizing the important work of the Interfaith Food Pantry of the Oranges. As mentioned, roughly 30 years ago, Township resident Julie Towell, who's with us tonight, and Hope Lampy came together to help our neighbors in need with dignity and respect. They passed the baton to another inspiring pair of residents, Diane Stein and Janet Schwam, who dedicated over 20 years leading and expanding the IFPO. Today, the IFPO is truly a partnership between an amazing group of people. Our current working board, several of whom are in the row here, under the leadership of Jody Cooperman and Karen Busenlight, who's with us tonight also, as well as an incredible volunteer pool of more than 400, many of whom are township residents. In addition, we have partnerships with many local businesses, community groups, schools, nonprofits, healthcare providers, government organizations who come together to make every distribution possible. When I first volunteered at the IFPO about 12 years ago, we were serving roughly 100 clients a week. By January 2020, just before COVID hit, our numbers increased to an astonishing 300 pantry visits a week, levels we never dreamed we'd have the means and the manpower to assist. Since COVID, our numbers have doubled. We regularly assist 650 clients in a morning, reaching roughly 1,700 people when you add in all their family members. In 2023, there were more than 25,000 pantry visits, a 20% increase over 2022, and the need continues to grow. Over the years, our offerings have expanded, as I mentioned, from basic non-perishable food items to include fresh items such as fresh produce, milk, eggs, protein, menstrual care products, and household essentials. This often means purchasing 650 units of these items. We also have a robust diaper program that assists 400 babies a month. To further help clients, IFPO invites agencies on site to provide information on benefits such as SNAP, WIC, and health insurance. We partner with healthcare organizations to provide screenings and vaccinations on site throughout the year, making us a one-stop shop for clients. They can come and get their food and then continue right on to get a COVID vaccine. In the early days of COVID, our leadership team dedicated countless hours planning how we could reopen. We repeatedly worried if we here in Millburn were having trouble acquiring food for our families, how are our neighbors managing? It led us to start from scratch, to reinvent our entire operation, move to a new location, and develop an outdoor distribution system. We are all so proud of what we've managed to build. Not simply a distribution model, but a community as well. A community among our clients and a community among our volunteers who are often so inspired, they bring their friends to come along and work with them. Our registration team knows deeply personal stories of countless families and helps direct them to support when the burden becomes extra heavy. The IFPO community is truly the most amazing, dedicated, hardworking, caring group of people, and we all feel honored to be a part of it. It is such an honor to have our work recognized by the Township. On behalf of the entire IFPO team, thank you for this award. To learn more, to volunteer, or to support our mission, please visit our website at orangesfoodpantry.org. Thank you so much for this honor.
Yeah, and then just the award, just pull off that little sticky. There you go. Very formal. Oh, wait. Okay, it's official now. Thank you so much. All right, I'm gonna take one. Yeah, face on. Okay.
Does anybody else from the organization want to take a photo with the couple?
Which guys are we?
Oh,
yeah.
Oh, oh,
Yeah,
oh,
sure.
very
Very
good.
good. Yeah. I will make sure you guys catch us. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you for all you do, and thank you to the Community Service Award Committee for recognizing our volunteers. We're going to take a 5-minute recess for those that don't want to stay for the rest of the meeting. A member of the maintenance team at the Short Hills Terrace Apartments on Morris Turnpike was made aware of an elderly resident of the complex that wasn't feeling well. The gentleman was not able to reach him by phone, so he called the police to request a welfare check. Police responded and found him unconscious on the floor. He was immediately taken to the hospital just in time. The gentleman's actions saved the man's life. We will recognize him at a future meeting. So stories like this are what make our community so special. So I wanted to share that with everybody. We started planning for the Memorial Day Parade. It's going to take place on Monday, May 27th at 11 a.m. More information will follow on that. Tomorrow, I will be presenting a proclamation to Opportunity Project at their clubhouse at 60 East Willow Street for Brain Injury Awareness Month. I've worked with Opportunity in the past when it was with the Red Cross. They are an amazing organization and they do great work to help individuals with brain injuries. So if anyone wants to join tomorrow, it's at 10:30. We're also setting up a series of, we're trying to set up a series of town halls with our legislators. So we will let you know when that's going to take place, hopefully mid to late April. Lastly, I'd like to address a comment that was made by Mr. Giannetti, who represents RPM Development and the settlement agreement with the Fair Share Housing Center. In his February 23rd correspondence to Judge Santamoro, while disagreeing with a township committee decision, stated, in quotes, "It's clear that the inmates are running the asylum," end quote. As an elected member of this township committee and as mayor, I find this insulting, inflammatory rhetoric unacceptable. And I feel that he owes the Township of Milburn, the Township Committee, and the residents of this town an apology. That's all.
Thank you. Okay, a few updates. Special Improvement District. Main Street application, final edits were made, and that's going to be sent to the state this Friday. Restaurant Week, that's coming up March 17th through the 23rd. We have 40 restaurants so far participating. Everyone needs to stay in town and eat local. A lot of special events, great dishes, deep discounts across all the local fare. Everyone, please participate. That's again March 17th through the 23rd. Educational programs through the Chamber of Commerce. March 7th at 9:30 a.m. Session focusing on e-commerce programs. Other upcoming events for the Explore. Founding Day is on May 18th at Taylor Park. And then Girls Night Out on June 6th from 5:30 to 8 p.m. for everyone who wants to participate in that. Joint dispatch meeting report, no reports right now. Flood mitigation update. Work continues on developing the master plan for flooding. Had a couple of great meetings. The depth survey for the Orange Reservoir has been completed and turned over to Mott McDonald. Mott McDonald is the engineering firm used by the township. They did a 2D flood modeling for drainage solution along Ridgewood Road and are doing the planning for the Orange bypass. We've done some enhancements to the stormwater pumping stations at the Gilbert plant and Heron Circle have been completed, et cetera, et cetera. Rec department, 7th boys and 8th boys lost in their championship games. In-town rec basketball leagues, those finished up. And then the rec wrestling, we had 3 wrestlers finished with bronze medals in the end of season tournament. We'll give a shout out to Russ Lombardi, Chase Lee, and Johnny Smith. They all finished in the top 7th of their respective weight classes. Joint Facilities Committee, high school fields, the architect's working on the potential layouts for turfing the fields behind the high school, collecting the information on the flood areas to confirm what is feasible. They have all the information and now just doing all the heavy lifting on that work. Cricket, for late spring, the Board of Education has proposed that the Adult Cricket League be done behind the baseball, the varsity baseball field behind the high school on the grass fields. The rec department is buying a rollout cricket pitch, which can be used for all of the students as well, elementary, middle school, and high school. And then the grass fields that you see on all of our rec fields will be lifted in a couple of weeks. And once those are up and the fields are dry, everyone's welcome to start practicing. And that's the reports.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah, I have a few things from the library. First of all, Lisa Panarelli, who is a teacher at Hartshorn, was appointed as the Board of Education liaison to the library, since there's a lot of overlap between what goes on at the Milburn Free Public Library and the school library. There's a ton of events going on at the library, more than I could ever mention. I'll just spotlight one. Tomorrow, there's going to be a virtual talk with Nina Totenberg from National Public Radio on her book about her friendship with Ruth Bader Ginsburg. But that's just a drop in the bucket. That's virtual and you can register for that. But that's just one of millions of events going on there. So I suggest that you check out their website. And also plans are starting for the annual book sale, which is a huge event. So start going through your attic and wherever you keep your old books, because donations are very much needed and welcome. And then lastly, I participated in a meeting with the director of the library and the town planner because as we've talked about, the open space element of the master plan is being redone, and that includes indoor recreation, of which the library is a major constituent and location. So that section is under review, and more to come on that in the next few weeks.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Saccomandi.
Sure, just a few quick updates. So on the HPC front, the director of the SID and the director of the HPC met. So as you all know, the SID is pursuing the Main Street, New Jersey designation. One of the one of the criteria that they look at is whether the town has a historic district in their downtown. And so this gave those two groups a unique opportunity to talk about future collaboration on historic districts, particularly in the downtown areas of Milburn and Short Hills. So the SID is going to be doing a resolution at some point at their next meeting in furtherance of this collaboration. And one of the things that we're looking at having them support is a historic district for the Short Hills Village. Now, that's the area that includes the Short Hills train station, its associated parking lots, and then also a support for a designation for Taylor Park, because apparently Taylor Park, even though it's historic, has never been officially designated. So that's something that we're looking to collaborate on. Next, on the Environmental Commission, they met, and during the meeting, they modified their open space tax resolution and they brought it down. So in a future meeting, we're going to have a opportunity as a township committee to vote on whether we want this to go to a referendum. Now, the open space tax is actually a tremendous opportunity for the town. Basically, we would have a 1 cent tax, 1 cent per $100 of assessed value, and the money that accrues from there would be put in the open space trust fund, and that could be used for things like acquiring property for recreation fields or upgrades to existing recreation facilities, also building new parks or basically preserving open space. And this is something that many other towns have, and for whatever reason, Milburn has not had one. And the county actually has corresponding open space funds. So we're sort of at a disadvantage by not having one because there's some opportunities that we haven't been able to take part in funding wise as a result of not having this. So it's something that will go to a referendum if it passes on the TC, and residents will get to vote on it. So those are my two updates.
Thank you. Committeewoman Krupas.
Yes, thank you. The Downtown Traffic Circulation Improvement Subcommittee will be having their meeting on Wednesday, March 27th, to go over the concept plans. And this is talking about doing two-way on Essex Street. And former Mayor Dan Baer will be presenting with also what he sat on the planning board for many years. The current chair, Beth Saul, will be presenting the concept plan with Collier. So please, the time isn't determined yet, but Wednesday, March 27th, it'll be in this room, and there'll also be a Zoom on.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Mr. McDonald?
Thank you, Mayor. If you'll indulge me, I do have quite a few reports. First and foremost, just want to put a plug in to the residents that on April 18th, the Township's Office of Emergency Management will be holding a flood resilience session. The presenters in this, it'll all be via Zoom. The information, the date, the Zoom information will be communicated through the Township's channels. Thomas Song will be presenting. He's a FEMA 2 region flood insurance liaison and resilience specialist. He'll provide the presentation, and also Tyler Ardron is a certified floodplain manager with experience in the insurance field. Both of these individuals will be presenting and talking to the township regarding their areas of expertise. This does not change or take away from the normal May session that the Office of Emergency Management will put on in preparation for hurricane season, which starts on June 1st. The budget schedule for the township's budget will be introed on April 2nd. We will hold a budget information session on April 9th or 11th, and the public hearing and adoption will be scheduled for May 7th. The Pedestrian Safety Advisory Board met and discussed a few things, but sort of most notably is that the pedestrian signal at Lackawanna Place by the library lot and the commuter lot at Lot 7 will start to undergo renovation to make sure that there's advanced warning, both for cars driving toward Glen Avenue, so that they can see that on the other side of the train trestle, a pedestrian is looking to cross. It'll be another pedestrian activated signal. The difference in this one is that we are going to install motion activation as opposed to a push button. So we're going to work to improve the safety of that crossing, which is a pretty heavy crossing, especially on the weekends. In addition, just to let everyone know, the Township's Engineering Office did apply for a CDBG grant. This is a community development block grant. These run every year. However, we have chosen, and I've announced it at these meetings in the past, to hold per one year so that we can get a larger grant award. Normally our grant award is in the ballpark of 35,000. It doesn't really get a large project or a lot of work done, so we hold for an additional year so that we can get more things accomplished through that grant. So we applied for just under 70,000 to do curb ramp repairs and barrier-free accessibility in various intersections throughout the township. Parking ad hoc also met. We discussed Lot 5 safety concerns. For those that frequent Lot 5, like myself, there is a lot of cut-through traffic. People are utilizing the cut-through from Essex Street to Milburn Avenue. Some of them are speeding through the lot. So we're looking at, we're doing some observations in the lot, as well as looking at ways that we can improve that safety, perhaps without having to go so drastic as changing the circulation altogether to one way in and one way out. But hopefully we can make some improvements there to bring additional safety. We discussed Essex Street delivery spaces. There are a few unused parking spaces on Essex Street. Up by the train station. We are converting those to delivery driver spaces. We're indicating to drivers from Uber Eats, Grubhub, etc., to park there and wait for their calls or their messages or however they receive the information to get to a particular restaurant and pick up a delivery. And then we are also looking at several pay stations that we have in the downtown area and Upper Milburn Avenue area that are life cycling out. And there's probably about 6 or 7 of those that we are gonna have to replace. So that was the discussion from the parking ad hoc. Just to quickly go back to pedestrian safety, the next meeting is on April 15th at 9 a.m. via Zoom for those that are interested in participating. Lastly, well, somewhat lastly, town hall renovations. As you know, the township has been working since the end of 2022 and all of 2023 toward various town hall renovations. Quite a big project, quite a big undertaking. We've authorized the additional high-level look at combined PD town hall and/or a new town hall location, just to make sure that we have all of the options that are available and all of the information for the public information session that we plan on holding late in March. Right now, it is going to be tentatively for March 28th. Again, time to be determined. There's a lot going on right now and a lot in March that we're trying to schedule. So we are, but we're just asking people to pencil in. That's where we'd like to introduce the town hall renovation to the public. Lastly, at the last meeting, a lot of information, discussion, and comments were made with regard to police department matters, and I'd like to provide an update to the public and to the Township Committee on those matters. First and foremost, the police department will be doing training over the month of March to develop a program for home assessments. We plan on starting that program in April, so be on the lookout for additional information on that. Also, the township will begin communicating to the public through its current system, which is Rave or Milburn Alert or Smart 911, to provide information to residents when home burglaries or attempted home burglaries take place in the township. We are setting up a Rave category that people can opt into or opt out of or not participate in for police department notifications. We are going to start slow. We're gonna start with communicating home burglaries and those attempted home burglaries. The information provided to residents for that will be general location, a brief description of what occurred, locked or unlocked, so in other words, whether it was forced entry or not forced entry, time of day if it's known. We're going to provide contact information if it's still under investigation, and we'd like to ask the residents for assistance and for those that may know something about something that occurred in the area. I would also just point out that this occurs immediately after the police respond. They go around door to door and they speak to residents and they make sure that they're getting as much information, camera information, whatever it might be that residents may have. But this is just another opportunity for us to cast the net a little bit wider. In addition, those notifications will provide tips to protect your own home and property. Again, what we're going to do is we're going to migrate the list in our Rave system to this notification system. So at first, everyone will get them. If you decide that you do not want to get them, you can always go into your account and opt out of those notifications. In addition, the resident protection ordinance that was brought up by the Township Committee has been looked at by the Township's attorney, the police chief, as well as the judge, and will be on for consideration on March 19th. On tonight's agenda is also a resolution for the Township Committee to consider the support of 2 bills that are currently in committee in the New Jersey Senate. These bills upgrade the charge of a burglary to a home from a 3rd degree offense to a 2nd degree offense. I think both of these bills, while are slightly different, both accomplish the same thing, which is that creating a greater penalty for those that continue to do this type of crime. The township also added to its website easy to find information on our state legislators and how to contact them. Part of the overall ecosystem of combating crime in your community is making sure that your legislators know about it and that they know that you are you want change. And so being able to find that information readily on the township's website, it is actually under how do I contact my state legislator, so that our public can contact them when these issues arise as well. We are working on additional KPIs with the police department. This is a work in progress currently. What we categorize and what we follow are car thefts, car burglaries, cars recovered from car theft, home burglaries, shoplifting, and cases under investigation. To just provide both the Township Committee and the public with the February statistics. We had 0 car thefts, 0 car burglaries. I'm sorry, 0 car thefts, 2 home burglaries, and we still have about 203 cases under investigation. Shoplifting is obviously a crime that happens quite a bit with the mall. But those are all posted on our website for people to view. While it does take a little bit, so our KPIs are due from departments on the 5th of the month following. So that's today. So they're not going to be up on the website currently, but they will be there in the next day or so as we develop those front-facing KPIs. So we just encourage people to go on there. It's under performance measurement on the township's website, so you can continue to follow that. And I will be continuing to provide that information directly to the Township Committee on a monthly basis. Public information session on PD matters. We are still working on that. I do apologize that I do not have a date specific, but we are actively working on that and its format. As I had mentioned, there are many forces kind of pulling on March right now, and we're just trying to get something set up as quickly as possible and make sure that we have everybody that needs to be there. And so just wanted to let the Township Committee know that we are actively working on that. And as I said, March is turning into be a pretty busy month in terms of public information sessions and various things going on. So that is my update on police department matters, and we'll continue to work at it.
Thank you. Mr. King.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening. Just a brief update on our fair share housing litigation. So on February 27th, there was an in-person case management conference attended by several governing body members and several residents of the Township of Milburn. Going into that case management conference, Fair Share Housing and the developer of the 9 Main Street site, the proposed developer of the 9 Main Street site, RPM, asked the court on that date to sanction the township, increase penalties, and force us to do some action. The township responded. My office wrote a letter advising the court that we thought we were entitled to a briefing schedule. We wanted to fully flesh out all the issues. The court agreed with the township and set a briefing schedule and a motion practice. Motions are due tomorrow from the developer, Fair Share Housing, and if the township is going to file any motions for the purposes of tonight, because they're not going to be made public until tomorrow, it's going to be held under litigation strategy. But once those motions are filed, they'll be available to the public as they'll be on the court's docket. And those motions will be heard on March 21st. And that's pretty much the full update on the Fair Share Housing litigation. That brings everybody up to date. Thank you, Mayor. Unless there's any questions from the committee on anything. Thank you.
Thank you. Public comment. When invited to speak to offer your comments, please come to the lectern, clearly state your name and whether you are a Milburn resident and or a property or business owner. Please do not provide your full address, seeing our meetings are recorded and readily available to the public. For the convenience of our community, there is a remote option. If you called in and would like to comment, please press *6 now. If you are attending by computer or electronic device, please use the raise hand button and be sure your video is on when you comment. All members of the public wishing to speak will be put into the queue to address the committee. To help facilitate an orderly meeting and to permit all to be heard, speakers shall limit their comments to 1 3-minute session. You will be prompted when there is 30 seconds remaining. A reminder that this is not a time for dialogue or to debate a matter, and this is a time during our business meeting for the public to offer comments. I will now open the public comment period.
Good evening, Mayor Romano, Deputy Mayor Saccomandi, and the rest of the Township Committee. My name is Mike Stotts. I'm the Executive Director of Paper Mill Playhouse. At this evening's meeting, a resolution will be introduced to authorize $7 million in support of capital improvements to the Paper Mill campus. I'm here tonight to thank the Township Committee for introducing this important resolution that will contribute greatly to the safety, accessibility, and aesthetic of the Paper Mill campus. Over the last several months, we have presented the plans for upcoming renovations to our theater and the campus and hope that we have adequately answered yours and the community's questions about our plans. As we have tried to express, these renovations are not a want, they are a need. And without the township's financial support, the longer-term viability of Paper Mill Playhouse would be in question. Over the past few weeks, you have heard me speak about the $36 million in annual economic impact Paper Mill has to the local economy. Some of that economic activity is generated by the Paper Mill staff and the artists who work at the theater. In 2023, we issued 1,164 W-2s and 1099s to Paper Mill employees, representing salaries and fees to employees exceeding $13.6 million. That's a large payroll. All of these great individuals support the local economy by dining in Millburn, frequenting the Millburn Deli, Oscars, and Goldberg's, shopping here, celebrating our opening nights here. Some of them raise their families in Millburn and pay real estate taxes here too. Tonight, I'm here with several members of the Paper Mill staff who help to produce our shows, work in our box office and front of house, maintain the facilities, work in marketing, fundraising, finance, and operations, work in the Carriage House restaurant or the Paper Mill studios with our education programs. They are the heart and soul of Paper Mill and the backbone of the organization that is arguably the single most important business entity in this community. Speaking out against the bond ordinance in this project is speaking out for the demise of Paper Mill Playhouse and the slow death of downtown Millburn. It is that simple. And as you can see, there are a lot of jobs at stake. Mark Hobie and I and our board have been very forthcoming in discussing our project and the organization. I'm grateful for the time that we have spent with you, each of you on the Township Committee, and applaud you for your vision, your candor, your understanding, your collaborative spirit, and the positive force you are collectively bringing to our local politics and decision-making. When the renovations of the theater and upgrades to the Paper Mill campus are finished, everyone in this room can celebrate the collaboration between Paper Mill and the Township and take great pride in knowing that the facilities have been improved and maintained for future generations. Thank you.
Sorry. All right, well, I'm talking about the paper mills. Oh, yes, so. Okay. Well, I enjoyed seeing the accolades that the charity that provides food for and diapers and all that. You know, as a former social worker, my first career, those kinds of stories are really important.
Sorry, your name and address for the record. I'm
Sorry. Fran Feld, South Mountain neighborhood. So kudos to the food, and I know the food bank is a big part of your life in it. So I think we all see the importance of charity. Charity begins at home, right? So I think it's a way for me to look at the Paper Mill ask, because I don't know how else to look at the amount of money that they're asking us for, unless we want to say it's charity. Your fiduciary duty is to be good stewards of town assets. That means being guardians of these assets, which include taxpayer dollars. When you're asked for money with no strings attached, shouldn't you examine what kind of stewardship of its own organization the supplicant has demonstrated? A supplicant who made promises years ago that it has not fulfilled. For example, the promise to keep up their facility maintenance. That was the promise made in the lease they signed when Millburn purchased the theater for $9 million to keep it from succumbing to bankruptcy from poor management over 10 years ago. But it seems that supplying millions of dollars to make repairs and snazz up the building is not enough. The Paper Mill board wants to create a new and extremely costly 4-story glass front on the building.
I don't think you have to be an architect or an engineer to even guess how much money that kind of addition would cost. So I think you should ask how much this large new addition will cost on its own, apart from the maintenance and repairs that we keep hearing are so desperately needed. And I'm not arguing about the maintenance and the repairs. Perhaps when you realize the enormous cost of adding such a vanity project on this building, you might consider subtracting that figure from the 7 million that we have been asked for. So you take that addition and you subtract it. It may be a negative number. Is that an organization that cannot keep its promises does not need a fancy and very costly new entrance and atrium. Instead, it needs supervision in keeping its promises. Is the Township Committee ready to commit to that? Or is this whole thing just pure charity? Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? What's that?
My name's Judith Christian. I own a home in the Wyoming section. I'm here to appeal to the township to work with the county to have crossing stripes placed across Wyoming Avenue, as is done on Wyoming Avenue in Maplewood. And this would entail only 6 crossings at the following locations: Chestnut, Cedar, Pine, Elm, Maple, and Mountain, as crossings already exist at Linden for the Wyoming Church and Cypress for the Wyoming School. Although Wyoming is a county road, this is still a residential area with many walkers and runners. They should be able to access the crossing at every side street. Between Mountain and Cypress, traveling north-northeast towards Maplewood, there is no sidewalk on the right-hand side of Wyoming. Anyone walking up one of the side streets between Mountain and Cypress, returning from a walk to Maplewood Village, for example, has either to walk in the street or try to cross Wyoming to get the other side in order to continue on a sidewalk. Having spent more than a few decades living on the corner of Wyoming and Linden, which I shouldn't have said, I am very aware of how much cars and trucks that are traveling from the Maplewood direction speed up once they cross Cypress Street. One reason for this, of course, is the downhill grade in that area. But I think the consistent use of pedestrian crossings, as is done on Wyoming and Maplewood, would help keep drivers more alert to speed limit, since they would have to watch out for a possible pedestrians crossing. And having a pedestrian crossing at both Chestnut and Cedar Streets would make the already established crossings at Linden and Cypress more safe. The crossing at Linden can be precarious at best because of the speed of the traffic. The addition of these pedestrian crossings on Wyoming would maintain the residential nature of this beautiful historic area and would make it more walkable. Over the decades, Wyoming Avenue has become more and more like a highway, thus reducing the quality of life and the neighborhood feel of the area, as well as jeopardizing the safety of the many walkers and runners who travel along Wyoming. I sincerely hope the township can work with the county to add these crossings, something that is clearly possible since it is done at every Wyoming side street through Maplewood. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Carol Malik Kirsch, also in the Wyoming section. I would like to support the request to consider adding more crosswalks, as well as additional crossing signage and effective speed limit reminders on Wyoming Avenue. I have lived on the upper side of Wyoming Avenue for over 40 years. 35 years ago, when my children first started to attend the Wyoming Elementary School, I, like other parents in my neighborhood, were very concerned with the necessity of our children having to navigate this highly traveled multi-town accessed road just to get to their school or visit with their school friends who lived on the opposite side of Wyoming Avenue, or to access Slayton Field, the only play area in the Wyoming section. While I believe that the addition of many crosswalks would serve to enhance the safety of this road, the long-term absence of a Wyoming Avenue crosswalk and effective school awareness signage on the Pine Street side of the school in particular, especially in light of the absence of sidewalks in this vicinity, is, in my opinion, a long time and important omission that is particularly concerning. For various reasons, on so many of our roads today, the speed and often impatient behavior of drivers has dramatically increased and has made roads like Wyoming Avenue even more dangerous now for school children and other pedestrians and drivers alike. I am aware that because Wyoming Avenue is a county road, it therefore requires county involvement to address this concern. As one who had regularly attended Milburn Township Committee meetings for many years, I remember a time when a county representative gave reports at these meetings and regularly appeared on the agenda. I am delighted to find out that we are reinstating this. Having expressed similar safety concerns to the Verona Township Committee about Lakeside Avenue, which borders the Verona County Park and my grandson's home, I was impressed to see that they had a regular county representative reporting at each meeting. This county representative remained present to listen to community member concerns, which he then communicated back to the county. I believe having a county representative present and on the agenda to report at Milburn's meetings and to hear of these types of residents' concerns can be helpful in attempting to get these and other safety concerns addressed and hopefully resolved. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jeffrey Feld from the public section. I'm gonna just be addressing right now some agenda items. We heard about various public forums. I wrote to you, and I thought it was promised to us that there would be an announcement when there would be a public forum on the paper mill transaction. Because I think the public needs to know what are the promises, what are we getting back? The sales agreement, because there is an acquisition, what is the appraisal? In addition, I think we are entitled to a legal opinion from our municipal attorney regarding whether we comply with Article 8, Section 3, Paragraph 2, and Article 8, Section 3, Paragraph 3 of our state constitution, which are prohibitions about using public assets for private purposes. And I think we're entitled to an opinion to know where we are. But I think we need to know the appraisals and when the date. And we are going to be having problems because we have the Easter holiday coming up and Passover in early April, that we really need to have this before, a couple days before the April 19th second reading. My other question always comes back to, and this has been a pending question almost every meeting, when you talk about reconstituting or creating, establishing committees and departments, why do we do that by resolutions and why don't we do it by ordinance? Yesterday in the Star Ledger, there was a notice of Verona amending their recreation department, and that's done by ordinance. And again, this is consistency. I hate to be bounding it. When I started showing up in September 2020, this is municipal law. It's cookbook law. You're a creature of state law. Your fiduciary is a public trust. And I think every year, rather than if you do by resolution, every year you have to reconstitute. If we do by ordinance, we know what the rules are. And there's a question when you go to the administrative code or you go onto our website, why are some committees, why are some commissions contained and some aren't? I think we should all know what committees are established, what are the rules for appointment, because I think this is the real issue you're all having now, is about the advice of consent of the entire committee that we should be, or the council, that we should have this done, so at least it's codified, and so we don't have to do this every year. The only thing we have to do every year is appoint new members. Thank you.
Thank you.
Charlie Bambara, Short Hills resident for 27 years. Want to address the looming threat to the transient housing market that particularly, I only have one copy, there's a piece of legislation that was introduced January 29th in the state Senate for accessory dwelling units where people can convert their attached garages and things to additional dwelling, and it severely limits the township's ability to restrict that. So that's one aspect. I don't know whether you have a plan to address this or at least oppose it for the record. Secondly, there's also a trend that I've been reading about for private equity investment hedge funds to purchase single family housing within towns, and I think Milburn and Short Hills is a prime target for that because of the potential for investment assets. So I wonder if there's a way to prevent corporate purchase or non-private purchase of single family houses within town. And the third relates back to the accessory dwelling units. I don't know if we have anything on the books that restricts Airbnbs within town. We do, okay, right, because that ties in with that. But I'm concerned with, with what we're seeing with fair share housing. There's so many other pieces of legislation being introduced. Some of you may be familiar with this. I could leave you a copy of it if you need it. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone? Oh, Mr. Moria.
Hi, Jay Morelli, resident. I'd like to start with a couple of thank yous. First to Mayor Romano and Committeeman Cohen for meeting with me and a neighbor, representing several of us in the Glenwood area to discuss zoning concerns. So thank you for that, for your time. And I'd like to separately commend Mayor Romano for signing on to Mayors Against Illegal Guns and joining mayors across the country dedicated to reducing gun violence in our community and in our country. And then just one comment regarding the two-way traffic study that I guess is going to be discussed on the 27th of March. I've asked in the past whether or not there would be measurable objectives associated with this initiative. And I think even Committeeman Stoller at one point talked about the need for a dashboard saying, here's how we're going to measure whether or not, if we make these changes to two-way traffic, they are indeed successful. We had a similar project, Complete Streets, a number of years ago. I don't think there were any measurable objectives set up before that were discussed, set up after. In response, a large part of Complete Streets was taken down. Hopefully we do not have that same experience with the two-way traffic. And I think it would be helpful to communicate to the community what it is that this is going to accomplish in measurable terms that we can measure before and measure after to judge success. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Jean Pasternak, resident. Thank you for the update on the police department statistics. That's a refreshing change and we're really happy to hear it as residents. As far as the case management conference on the fair share, I just want to acknowledge Mr. Cantor's excellent work and that I'm glad you acknowledged the residents that attended. And I think while we may not be many, I want somebody here to know that we really appreciate that and know that many of us support all of your efforts fully on the fair share challenge. I am in full support of the amazing Paper Mill Theater as a nonprofit and a really game changer to our region and town. But I don't agree with our town being involved in the management of a nonprofit. And I believe others share my belief that I've spoken to. We don't believe the township should involve our taxpayers in any way managing a nonprofit. I understand the decision that was taken. It was hard, it was difficult. It's also a long-term risky one for a municipality. Our town is changing rapidly. And as fiduciaries making long-term decisions for us, we should expect a thorough and deep review of expenditures and alternatives possible for the use of those funds, of the size and implications. I applaud the hard work done by all involved, including those at the paper mill, in making this very difficult ask and decision. But I'd appreciate acknowledging that it is one that has risks attached to it. And I ask that a commitment be made by the Township Committee to conducting a long-range and strategic review of all major expenditures, long-term expenditures, by this committee during this year. My last comment is about zoning. I've raised specific issues and Alex has been responsive, and so have some others in the township town hall. But I have an issue generally, which is we have a lot of building going on in town, both commercial and residential. I don't believe we have enough or sufficient resources to conduct the reviews that need to be done by zoning enforcement. And I'm just asking, is there some way that we can get more resources focused on that? While I embrace our change in town and the growth, we need balance and adherence to our zoning rules and regulations to preserve the quality of life that we all deserve. Thank you.
Thank you. Shall we go to the screen?
There is currently nobody online. Questions?
Hi, my name is Dina Friedler. I'm a resident in Short Hills and a mom at Deerfield. I'm also an employee of the Paper Mill Playhouse. So I wanted to speak on behalf of my support of the Paper Mill as the Paper Mill Playhouse is without a doubt part of what makes our town special. As someone who works in the arts, it was important to me when I moved to the suburbs that I find a town not only with excellent schools and an easy commute, but also, I'm sorry, my daughter keeps calling me. With excellent schools, but also support of the arts. The Paper Mill Playhouse showed us that this town fit that bill. A lot of other like-minded people have similarly chosen to live in Millburn, in parts because of the arts that our town supports. As a resident, almost all of my friends and I have a subscription to the Paper Mill. It affords us the luxury of a guaranteed date night out and offers us a unique cultural experience. Moreover, I'm home to relieve the babysitter in 5 minutes. I've been at PTO meetings and at school pickups and soccer practices many, many times over the years when moms are discussing what is playing at the Paper Mill and whether or not they should get tickets to this show, the next show, or both. When the Paper Mill has performances running, the town is especially vibrant, filled with folks from all over the area coming to dine in our restaurants and shop in our towns. I know that studies show that Millburn has more restaurants than other towns similar to ours. The success of our town is so contingent upon the success of the Paper Mill Playhouse. It is a unique and wonderful gift to have a Tony Award-winning regional theater in our community. As a mom, my children have attended classes through the Paper Mill Playhouse on and off over the years, attending children's theater and family shows. And that has afforded my kids the opportunity to see Broadway caliber theater right in their own backyard. But the most amazing experience that my daughter had this year was when the Paper Mill opened its doors to the middle school so that the entire school could attend a production of Fiddler on the Roof. This experience not only opened up the doors for many children who had not ever been to the theater before, it also opened up necessary discussions. As important as math and science are, and they are important, the arts is an important part of children's education as well. I know that Paper Mill Playhouse has offered to have more events like this in the future, which strongly benefit our children. Finally, I am an employee at the Paper Mill Playhouse. I have spent my entire career managing and producing Broadway shows. When the opportunity opened for me to get involved working here, I jumped at the chance. I'm not sure how many of you realized how prestigious the Paper Mill Playhouse is. Many of the top professionals on Broadway spend time working here. Many of our shows go on to Broadway. The theater has won a Tony Award. This is not typical of theaters in small towns. We are lucky that the Paper Mill Playhouse is part of our community, and we should do what we can to support and guarantee its future. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Cody Andrus. I'm a resident of East Orange. And I am, as of 3 months ago, I joined the paper mill team in the marketing and communications department. One of the reasons I came to paper mill was because of the services that they provide, not only the shows that they do. Before this, I was at New York City Center and I was at Lincoln Center Theater in the city. Again, older buildings that are very prestigious and can't really help the people that they need to based on the buildings that they are in. Paper mill has the opportunity here, and Milburn Township does, to serve more people, different people, expand our services. One of the reasons that I came to paper mill was because of the amazing access services we have. In my department, we have amazing manager of audience services and access services who helps us do our performances for those living on the autism spectrum, those who are deaf or hard of hearing, those who are blind. We do performances with each and every show for those specific audiences. And I think it's important for us to expand the reach of the Paper Mill Playhouse and to show what an amazing place Milburn is. I've lived in East Orange for 3 years now, but I've been coming to Paper Mill for the last 20. I came from the city on the train, got off, had lunch at the diner, saw a show at Paper Mill, had dinner in the city, and took the train back. And now, as a staff member of Paper Mill, I'm here 5 days, 6 days, sometimes 7 days a week. I don't really want to admit how much I spend at the Milburn Deli, but it's quite a lot. We actually come here instead of staying in East Orange because Milburn has the best downtown, the best restaurants. I've switched to my ShopRite pharmacy to Milburn. Don't tell West Orange. But I say this all personally, knowing as a marketing department the impact that Paper Mill has on both local residents around the state, and as we saw with this last year, every state in the country, and 26 countries? Yeah, 26 countries coming to see our shows. So I just want to remember how important Paper Mill is and how much this bond ordinance will help us to expand that reach and to expand the reach of Milburn Township. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, we'll now close the public comment period. Any remarks from the Township Committee? Start with Committeeman Stoller.
Sure. So for Judith and Carol, I'm a neighbor. I'm at Wyoming and Cedar. So I'm all for the crossing walks and whatever else we can do to manage traffic on Wyoming. It is very, very difficult crossing Wyoming at any time of day. So I think the most effective was really the speed traps that Chief Gilfeder and we started to set. Those give us the most, those are the most effective ways to stop the speeding. But I do feel that we should look at doing the crosswalks in the 6 or 7 consecutive blocks because it will force people to slow down. Especially during the after school and prior to school, there's a lot of children walking to the school. In terms of Jay Morelli and the dashboard to measure, I think we're putting that in place for the two-way traffic on Essex to have some measure of success and be able to measure how that goes. We're bringing the Paper Mill Playhouse. We're going to have a public session for Mr. Feld. We were going to mention that tonight. That's going to be on Thursday. Is that correct, Alex? Or no, on Tuesday, March 12th?
Just for me, I'm glad.
What's that? It's going to be on March 12th. We're going to have the public session open to the entire community. And we're going to go through all of the different pieces. We did an extensive amount of work looking at the funds that are going to be allocated to the Paper Mill Playhouse. And I'm going to do some information session tonight as we go into, I'm going to be reading the ordinance, reading the bond and such, but I want us to be very, very careful how we approach it and understand what we're gonna be doing with the Paper Mill Playhouse. And it's really a partnership. We're working together to ensure their success. We were very, very careful to make sure that when we look at utilizing public funds, that we were also getting revenue from the Paper Mill Playhouse. And the revenue that we're getting is actually funding the bond that we're issuing for their part, our contribution to the Paper Mill Playhouse. And let's be very, 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 very direct about this. The Paper Mill Playhouse is a huge part of our town. Anybody who does not think so needs to hear the numbers. They are a direct impact on our restaurants in town of $3.8 million a year. That's $68 per patron for about 30% of the patrons that come. 190 shows, including matinees, that's about 55,000 visitors who come downtown, about 375 visitors per show. I personally went downtown over a 2-day period. I met with the owners and proprietors and the general managers of all the restaurants, majority of the restaurants, Caramia, La Pergola, Basilico, The Standard, Fiamma. I went in, I sat down, I looked them in the eyes. I said, what does the Paper Mill Playhouse mean to you guys? Every conversation I got back was, they wouldn't be able to pay their rents without the patrons of the Paper Mill Playhouse. The demographics of our town are changing, folks. People aren't eating out as much as they used to eat out. The Paper Mill Playhouse brings people downtown and they eat out before the shows. And that keeps our restaurants in business. It is the single most important business to our township. We must support it. And if we can support it through the revenue that we're bringing back from the lease and the revenue for the parking, which we negotiated hard. I think Mark and Mike will tell you we negotiated hard. At one point, I packed my stuff up and left. I promise you, we worked hard. And maybe it was a little too hard, but we negotiated hard with them. And we made it a self-funding deal with them. We got back, we have $1.2 million on the books, which is a reserve, a cash reserve that's sitting there to fund some of the repairs. We're getting back 20 Brookside, a deed for 20 Brookside, $1.8 million. That leaves roughly $4 million or so. We're getting $1.6 million in revenues for the parking. We're getting average $300,000 per year in lease payments, but it's going to be self-defeasing. We're getting about $350,000 in revenues per year from the Paper Mill Playhouse. To fund the bond, it's roughly $197,000. We're going to be net positive on this. We're using our balance sheet because it's an arbitrage on the interest expense, but it is one of the single most important assets to our town. Do not be myopic in our view of the Paper Mill Playhouse. And from a cultural standpoint, we've got a whole litany, host of other things, tickets for the needy, tickets for children under 20, performances for the children. And I'll go through that list later, but we got a really good deal, folks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Committeeman Cohen?
Sure, a couple of things. Obviously, I also agree the crossing stripes on Wyoming Avenue are important. I would think that this is something that the Pedestrian Safety Advisory Board should take up and add to their agenda to work with the county to make that a reality. So I'm not sure which, I don't sit on that, I don't know who does, but whoever does, I would ask that you bring it to that committee. ADUs, the accessory development units, we are aware of them. We are aware of the bill. We are formulating our strategy and what is the best way to deal with that. But it's something we are aware of, and certainly I'm concerned about. Lastly, some of the issues around the zoning. We have formed that we have had the pre-existing zoning code subcommittee. At the last meeting, we added a member of the public. I think there's still one open public spot. Will be one of the things in the consent agenda, adds a couple more members from the planning board. But that is the way, when that committee holds its meetings, that is the place to address the concerns that some of the people tonight have talked about. And they're the ones to look at the existing zoning laws and figure out a way to tighten them up if needed, or to make sure that they're enforced.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Saccomandi.
Sure. So for Mr. Bambera, we are aware, as Mr. Cohen stated, about the pending legislation quickly moving through the Senate on the accessory dwelling units. I find the legislation particularly concerning because what it does is, I view it as the state encroaching on local municipalities' zoning rights. And it's actually interesting because the League of Municipalities seems to agree with that sentiment, and they are opposing this as well. I would suggest that if we have consensus on the committee for next meeting, we should put together a resolution officially opposing that, because I think more municipalities need to speak out against this. Because I think we're seeing this all too often where the state is coming in and starting to find ways to encroach on our local zoning. They did it with fair share. They're now trying to do it with these accessory dwelling units. And really that should be something that's under an individual town's control so that they can customize a policy on accessory dwelling units that'll fit the town, or maybe the town will say no accessory dwelling units. Each municipality is different, and this law takes away our ability to craft our own zoning. So I think it's something we should strongly oppose. Mr. Morreale, you wanted to know if there's going to be measurable objectives for the traffic study before and after the two-way streets. I know we've had some discussions up on the dais about this. And, you know, I had also brought up the idea of a townwide traffic study. That's something I actually spoke to Mr. McDonald about again on Friday, and he said he was looking into it. But yes, obviously, as we're formulating the plans for the two-way traffic, I do agree that we should find some way to get metrics both before and after so that we can see if we've achieved our goals. I also think the townwide traffic study would dovetail nicely into the concerns about Wyoming Avenue. It is my understanding that is a county road, so maybe we can reach out to someone at the county to see if they'd be willing to put some striping in. But I think before we do that, we ought to try and get some concrete data on exactly what's going on there. You know, are people speeding by only at various times during the day? Would it make sense to put stop signs in addition to crosswalks? Do we need a traffic light? Things like this. So that's again another reason to, do a townwide traffic study. So hopefully in future meetings, Mr. McDonald will have an update for us on that. There's been a number of individuals that came up tonight to express both their support and for the paper mill, and others that stand in opposition to it. Look, anytime the town is going to spend money, there's always going to be naysayers, right? The question is this a responsible use of the money, and is this going to help advance the interests of the residents in town and the town as a whole? And I'll admit I was torn on this because I see valid arguments on both sides. But the conclusion I came to is that the paper mill is definitely a very valuable asset to our town. And while we are being asked to invest in them yet again, as Mr. Stoller pointed out, it is sort of self-servicing, right? The revenue that we're going to get from the remaining lease payments is going to cover the bond. Now, in exchange for that, we're getting $36 million worth of improvements to a building that we own. We own those improvements outright as soon as they're completed. So if the paper mill decides in 5 years to walk away from their lease, I don't know why they would, considering how much money they'll have just sunk into the building, we would get that new, shiny, improved building, and we'd be able to go and get another theater company. Now, I don't think that that's something that will happen because this is an investment both ways, right? So it's an investment from our town of a few $1 million at the end of the day, because as Mr. Stoller pointed out, there's a $7 million ask. And I will say that was a $7.5 million ask before it was negotiated. Before it was negotiated, the paper mill wanted to stop paying for their lease for a period of time. They're going to be paying for the lease throughout the lease period. We're gonna be getting $1.6 million worth of parking revenue over the next 30 years. That'll help offset the cost of the $1.8 million property that we're gonna be getting in exchange for some of this investment. So if you look at the end of the day, it's about like a $4 million investment out of pocket. And again, because it's self-servicing and we're gonna get $36 million worth of value, to me, on a numbers perspective, that just makes sense. And the other thing is, you know, the paper mill is a regional theater, and we are so fortunate to have that in our town. It actually is one of the few things that brings people, other than coming to steal our cars, it brings people into our town, right? And we don't have a lot of things besides the mall, but when people go to the mall, they tend to stay out there, and that doesn't help the downtown area, right? Well, this is definitely an engine of economic growth for the downtown. And so at the end of the day, I think it really does make sense to support this, and I do support it. And if you have any further concerns, I encourage you to come to the public information session that we're gonna have about it, because this isn't a done deal. If a bunch of people come and have great ideas, we can maybe work with those. Or if not, then we'll proceed as planned.
Yeah, and the deal, it's March 12th. And to Frank's point, the $3.8 million of direct impact, that's per year, guys. So over 30 years, that's $116 million of direct impact to our town. And as I said before, that impact reduces overall, or increases ratables, allows rents to remain high, and allows our home values to stay high and our taxes to remain a little bit lower, even though they are very high.
Thank you. So let's see, Ms. Pasternak, you brought up a concern about the lack of zoning code enforcement. I share that concern, and I've expressed that concern during the zoning subcommittee that Mr. Cohen referred to. I would ask Mr. McDonald to go and review our municipal staffing, specifically with regards to building and zoning enforcement, and let us know if there's a need for greater staffing, or maybe we can contract with another town or do some sort of shared services agreement. But let's first get the data as to whether there's a need for that. I drive around and I see various zoning violations, so obviously I think there's a need that does exist, but I would leave it to the business administrator to quantify that. So that's a little bit of homework for you, Mr. McDonald. I know he just loves it when I'm at these meetings, right? But I think at that point, that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Committeewoman Pruvis?
I'm good. It's all been said.
Exactly. Mr. McDonald?
Deputy Mayor Saccomandi actually took the words out of my mouth in terms of the zoning enforcement. He did express his concern at the last meeting. I actually have a phone call set up with the chair of the zoning board to discuss it a little bit further and start that process. So for once, homework's already started. So we will be working on that and taking a look at the staffing levels in the zoning department. In particular, if you're familiar with the township, we have one code enforcement officer. We have a zoning officer that sits as both the planning board secretary as well as the zoning board secretary as well as the zoning officer. So wearing multiple hats in a busy town with a lot going on, it is difficult, and I think it is something that warrants attention. So I'll be working on that. Just wanted to comment on and just piggyback on the crosswalks on Wyoming. That will be brought up to the Pedestrian Safety Advisory Board. Mayor Romano and myself sit on that board. We'll make sure that that's addressed with that board, and understanding, and we'll get a little bit more information, understanding of Wyoming Avenue and what particular intersections have ADA accessible curbs. That plays heavily into it, and whether a crosswalk can be furnished at a particular intersection. And so while painting crosswalks would certainly be an easy endeavor, a potentially easy endeavor, in discussions with the county, I think there may be a little bit more to it. But again, I think it warrants a look and an understanding of how we might be able to improve the safety more quickly, and then what might be longer term types of improvements. And I think that was it for me.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll address Mr. Feld's question on committees and commissions and whether they should be established by ordinance or resolution. So I think tonight is specifically appropriate as we have resolution 24-093, which is a citizen steering committee on affordable housing. That's the type of committee that is actually very appropriate for resolution. It's temporary in nature, it's ad hoc as it deals only with the 9 Main Street project. But to Mr. Feld's point, a perpetual committee that we believe will be established for years and there is no end in sight is more appropriate to be done by ordinance. It's not wrong to do it by resolution, but then it has to be reestablished every year. So I agree with Mr. Feld that if these committees that are perpetual are established by ordinance, New Year's Day, all we need to do is appoint committee members. There are also commissions that are statutory, and I think Mr. Feld raised why are some codified in our code and some aren't. We're not required to codify them in as they're statutory. However, as Mr. Feld stated, a lot of towns do put them in their code. We are currently actually examining our committees and our commissions and how they're appointed and which ones can be addressed through the entire council, and some of the commissions are statutory and still require mayoral appointments, but we are going through that. So it really deals with the perpetual limited nature of the committee. And like I said tonight, I think the committee tonight is very appropriate for resolution, but others that exist perpetually should be codified by more better practice to be codified by ordinance. Thank you.
Mayor Romano, I just wanted to add one thing on the development, the accessory dwelling units. So Mr. McDonald talked earlier about how we've added the addresses of our state legislators to the website. And I would encourage all of you who feel strongly about this to contact them and talk about the bill that's in the Senate, and don't spare the Assembly, because if it, it's likely to come there as well. It is a serious issue that we are looking to address, but it can't just be us that does it with a resolution. I would encourage you guys to write to them as well with your feelings.
Great reminder. I just want to, Mr. Camacho will bring our Wyoming Avenue issue back to the county, I'm sure. The Township Committee will now consider consent agenda resolutions. Are there any comments from the committee in regards to any items listed on the consent agenda? May I have a motion to approve resolution 24-082 through 24-091, which are listed on the consent agenda?
So moved.
May I have a second?
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Cohen?
Yes.
Ms. Prupus? Yes. Deputy Mayor Sakamandy?
Yes.
Mr. Stoller?
Yes.
Mayor Romano?
Yes.
Thank you.
Are there any comments from the committee in regards to resolution 24-092? May I have a motion to approve resolution 24-092?
So moved.
May I have a second?
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Cohen?
Yes.
Ms. Prupus? Yes. Deputy Mayor Sakamandy?
Yes.
Mr. Stoller?
Yes.
Mayor Romano?
Yes.
Thank you.
Are there any comments from the committee in regards to resolution 24-093? May I have a motion to approve resolution 24-093?
So moved.
May I have a second?
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Cohen?
Yes.
Ms. Prupus? Yes. Deputy Mayor Sakamandy?
Yes.
Mr. Stoller?
Yes.
Mayor Romano?
Yes.
Thank you.
Committeeman Stoller, you are scheduled to sponsor ordinance 2663-24.
Thank you. I would like to present an ordinance entitled ordinance number 2663-24, bond ordinance to authorize the making of various public improvements in and by for the Township of Milburn in the County of Essex, State of New Jersey, to appropriate the sum of $7 million to pay the cost thereof, to make a down payment, to authorize the issuance of bonds, to finance such appropriation, and to provide for the issuance of bond anticipation notes in anticipation of the issuance of such bonds. The Paper Mill Playhouse has requested financial investment from the township to assist in updating their facility. When compared to peer theaters across the country, Paper Mill contends its physical plant is severely inadequate, very costly to maintain, and does not meet the needs of a 21st century entertainment facility. Much of Paper Mill's physical facility is functionally obsolete, such as bathrooms, exterior pathways, drop-off areas, safety railings, building systems, ADA code requirements, failing retaining walls, black ice sheeting hazards on parking lots, groundwater penetration, flooding in orchestra pits, and boiler room areas. These concerns pose liability risks to both Paper Mill and our township and will only become worse over time. We must be very prudent in using public funds for such projects. However, there are significant benefits that will be realized both economically and culturally to our town. Investing in performing arts facilities has become a very successful venture for towns offering substantial returns. These builds are now all modern and state-of-the-art facilities used to attract the best and most lucrative production companies, of which Paper Mill Playhouse is undoubtedly one. As such, Millburn is competing with Montclair, Westfield, Chatham, Newark, Morristown, and Summit. These towns are all trying to attract top performing arts companies such as Paper Mill. It only makes sense for Millburn to, in the spirit of collaboration and good partnership, find a viable, equitable, and reasonable path forward to economically support the Paper Mill Playhouse without risking or frivolously spending taxpayer dollars. And that is what we set out to negotiate and have done so. It is rare we can negotiate very hard and come out with a win-win scenario, and we have done that. Downtown Millburn, and frankly, a lot of New Jersey, has been challenged over the past few years due to COVID shutdowns, social distancing mandates, and general climate of fear. The very survival of our downtown businesses and entertainment anchors have literally been at stake. We lost our first run movie theater, as you guys are all aware, and it turned into a Charles Schwab. Our downtown has been plagued with some very long-term vacancies. This presents a major challenge to the entire community. Downtown not only represents a significant portion of the township's ratables, it is also a reflection of the health and identity of our township as a whole. Whatever this TC can do to underpin our local businesses must be done. We must remain competitive and invest in our downtown and make it a vibrant atmosphere such as our peers like Summit, Westfield, and Chatham, and maintain a level of quality our town residents expect. It is no question that the current jewel of Millburn is the Paper Mill Playhouse, and it is helping underpin our local economy. As I stated earlier, Paper Mill has a direct local impact of $3.8 million per year to our local businesses, dining, parking, patronage, etc. This number was calculated by ascribing $68 spent to 56,000 visitors, or 30% of the 190,000 annual visitors per year that regularly eat locally prior to attending Paper Mill Playhouse. That equates to roughly 375 patrons dining in MSH prior to an event. As I said earlier, last week I spent a couple days walking around downtown meeting with the owners of Caramia, Basilica, La Pergola, etc. And the common sentiment was that this is our jewel. It is very important for all of us to understand the dynamic of our town. And we were discussing at the SID just 2 weeks ago how to improve and create a shop local program, specifically for the changing demographics in our town. That being said, if current trends persist, local businesses will only continue to lose customers, which makes the Paper Mill Playhouse that much more important to us. In the spirit of collaboration and good partnership, we found an equitable and reasonable path forward without risking or frivolously spending taxpayer dollars. The best part of our township's contribution is that our lease payments and negotiated parking revenues will more than cover our servicing of the bond. We will be taking down a $5.8 million bond, which is our $7 million bond less the $1.2 million cash payment. The township will also receive $36 million in capital improvements on day one after renovation is complete, free and clear to our site. We will also receive a $1.8 million deed to the 20 Brookside property. As discussed, we're going to receive in perpetuity the direct economic benefit from the Paper Mill Playhouse for our businesses. In addition to the economic benefits, we've negotiated many qualitative benefits from the Paper Mill Playhouse that contribute directly to the fabric and children of our community. These include a Millburn Schools kindergarten through 12 programs. We're going to have adopt a school participation for the high school students. We're going to have a partnership with the middle schools for a lot of programs similar to the Fiddler on the Roof program. We'll have a master class and guest speaking opportunities for the Paper Mill Playhouse with the artistic staff and artists. Access for students to final dress rehearsals on the main stage. We'll have $20 student tickets for all other performances. The restaurant, the Carriage House. Upon completion of the renovation project at the Carriage House, we're gonna have updated Paper Mill Playhouse speaker events, live performances, cabaret offerings, private events, civic events, and it will be offered for meeting spaces. They will also offer increased restaurant hours based on demand. And then we will also have discount tickets, not-for-profit organization invitations for community day performances, the Opportunity Project and First Baptist Church of Millburn. Then we will also have discount tickets for in-need members of the community, such as the Families First program. And then a special Students Rush and 30 Under 30 program to Millburn students and residents that will allow unused tickets to be purchased at discount prior to performances. The schedule will be introduction of the bond ordinance tonight. Crystal clear, we're not approving it. This is the introduction of the bond ordinance. March 12th, we will have a public discussion session. And then on April 2nd, the ordinance public hearing and adoption. I move that this ordinance be taken up and passed on first reading, and that the township clerk be authorized to have the ordinance published in accordance with law in the item and for hearing and passage on Tuesday, April 2nd, 2024.
May I have a second?
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Cohen?
Yes.
Ms. Prupus?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Sakamandy?
Yes.
Mr. Stoller?
Yes.
Mayor Romano?
Yes.
Thank you.
Committeewoman Prupus, you are scheduled to sponsor ordinance 2664-24.
I would like to present an ordinance entitled ordinance number 2664-24, amending the code of the Township of Millburn, Chapter 9, Building and Housing, by the creation of Section 9-12 entitled Lead-Based Paint Hazard Inspection Requirements for Rental Dwellings. Alex, do you want to give a brief explanation?
Sure. This is an ordinance to codify the requirements that have been passed down by the state. Seems to be a running theme. But that requires municipalities to inspect those properties that are rented that were built prior to 1978 and may pose a lead-based paint hazard. Essentially what this does is establishes fees or fee range for those inspections and gives some additional information as to what the requirements are. If you can, an example would be you're renting a home prior to 1978. You can work with the township's contractor to have that inspected. And it's a visual inspection. If you pass a visual inspection, you're given a lead safe certification. It's good for 3 years. As long as you do not change tenants in the last year between year 2 and 3, you don't have to have that re-inspected until at the end of 3 years. There's the ability to be considered lead safe certified, which I think also requires some remediation of any lead-based paint, but it's a certification that will last in perpetuity. This information will be put on the township's website once the ordinance is passed and once we started our program for inspection with Lou Corporation, who was contracted earlier in the agenda. And again, this does not preclude any resident from going on the township on the state's website and choosing a contractor that's been vetted by the state of New Jersey to provide such services for your rental property.
I move that this ordinance be taken up and passed on first reading, of the township clerk be authorized to have the ordinance published in accordance with the law in the item and for hearing and final passage on Tuesday, April 2nd, 2024.
May I have a second?
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Cohen?
Yes.
Ms. Prupus?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Sakamandy?
Yes.
Mr. Stoller?
Yes.
Mayor Romano?
Yes.
Thank you.
Seeing no old business, no new business, public comment. This public comment period is to allow for final comments from the community. When invited to speak to offer your comments, please come to the lectern. Clearly state your name and whether you are a Millburn resident and or property or business owner. Please do not provide your full address, seeing our meetings are recorded and readily available to the public. A reminder that in order to help facilitate an orderly meeting and to permit all to be heard, speakers shall limit their comments to 1 3-hour session. I'm sorry. 3 minutes. Glad you're all listening.
I couldn't speak that long. Charles Bavara, 27-year resident of Short Hills. Actually, three things I wanted to bring up. I didn't want to introduce them earlier because they would have been sidetracked us from perhaps more important business. Firstly, I've mentioned it in several committees. Each time I was told it wasn't the right venue. I'd like to propose that we look at putting in Milburn, in Taylor Park, in the no, I forgot the word for it. I'll come back to that. I grew up in Bergenfield, in Bergen County. They had a program in town every Thursday night. I think that's probably too frequent for this town, but they closed the main street in town for traffic and opened it up as a pedestrian wall. And with the two-way traffic on Essex Street, that perhaps opens that as a possibility in town, that perhaps not every week, but maybe twice a month or once a month, we can open up Milburn Avenue for shopping and for dining and make a pedestrian wall out of it. What I wanted to get back to in Taylor Park was to now, what do you call the structure that, like, you'd put a band in or something?
Gazebo?
A gazebo. It's escaping my mind. I'd like to propose we put a gazebo in the middle of Taylor Pond with an attractive bridge tying it over to Bauer Center. It could be used for wedding photographs. It can be used as a bandstand for events in town. And I think it would be a very befitting thing to introduce to the town during the anniversary of Taylor Park coming up, that we need a program of improvements for that park. And I think that would be a very befitting and appropriate thing to announce if it can be financed. But maybe this is the right form to and the last thing, I'll save it. That's okay.
Thank you.
Jeffrey Feld, poet section. These are really non-agenda item comments. Again, I renew my offer to provide a certification under oath and penalty of perjury in opposition to RPM. I don't believe there's anyone else in this town that knows where the RPM skeletons are. Because remember, we have a show of hands. Who has ever been sued personally by RPM for questioning why they changed the terms of a deal in Orange, New Jersey? I'm just asking you. I'm the only person. Who knows where they had to get sued by Orange to collect their monies under the pilot? I'm willing to give you a certification and penalty of perjury. I don't know why you don't accept my offer. As to the KPIs, after the last meeting, I found out that every month our police department has to fill out a form with the state talking about crimes. We heard about all crimes like stealing cars, shoplifting. What about violent crimes? Why don't we know how many violent assaults are occurring or rapes are occurring in the town? Why is that information being shared? I know we don't want to know about it, but that is, I think, a form that should at least be supplied to the Township Committee, maybe not to the residents. I do attend Board of Education meetings. The superintendent every year gets an annual review by the board. And I've been coming to meetings here. With all due respect, does our BBA get an annual review by the Township Committee saying how he's performed? And I raise that because of one of the things that was mentioned at the last case management conference at affordable housing. It came up based on, I think, my statement that I made at the Township Committee about how monies were used from the Affordable Housing Trust Fund to pay the attorney, one of our attorneys. And Judge Santamora was not happy. She basically directed us to replenish those monies. Has that occurred? Also today, there was a very interesting hearing in Feld versus Milburn. I highly recommend that the Township Committee get a copy of that hearing, because there are a lot of statements, because the judge pulled back about how expansive his ruling was. He said it was a very restricted, limited opinion, because we went at it for about an hour and a half, I did, about what happened in calendar year 2021. Did the township abridge and deprive me of a right to be heard prior to consideration official action on non-ordinance agenda action items? No one ever answered that question. That is the third rail in the affordable housing case, because the settlement was approved without any public input. We did not know the terms. Judge Gardner punted the issue. Santamaro said Gardner handled it. They're going back and forth. And today Passamano says, I want nothing to do with this. That is the real issue. That is our linchpin to get out of here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Elaine Becker, Brookhaven Way. I know that the paper mill is a state theater, and I wonder if the state of New Jersey gives money to the paper mill playhouse also. Because I didn't hear that tonight.
They're providing $6 million.
Excuse me?
6 million. as
6
part of
million
this.
a year?
No,
No,
as a part of this.
I see, just this, so they don't, as a,
Cash payment.
okay, but nothing every year. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, we do.
You get money every year.
Yeah, we do.
Okay,
We
okay,
should,
good.
we should let her finish
I
her
figured
time.
that, I figured they must, but I hadn't heard it, so thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Jay Morielli. Thank you, Deputy Mayor and Committeeman Stoller, for acknowledging the need for metrics around the two-way traffic. I think that's fabulous. And if I heard you correctly, Committeeman Stoller, you said the deal we've worked out will result in revenue to the township that will cover the servicing of the debt. So I take that to mean there will be no taxpayer increase related to the $7 million that's going to the paper mill, since the revenue that we will be receiving is going to cover the debt servicing. And if so, I think that's great, but if you could just maybe respond to that, that'd be awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next Tuesday.
Anyone online?
Good evening, Jerry Kung, Short Hills resident. Please excuse me if my thoughts aren't fully formed, just a few things coming to mind. So I got a haircut today on Milburn Ave, original sharp, fully recommend. I noticed when I made my appointment, they said, in order not to be late, please park in the parking deck, which was very good advice. So I went directly to the parking deck. I didn't circle around. But then as I was walking out, I noticed, there were no cars in the parking deck, but the curbside spots were just entirely full. Right, so that leads to sort of a philosophical question, which is, what is the price of a parking spot, and should the price of a parking spot change? So for Uber, there's surge pricing, right? When everyone wants an Uber, the price of an Uber goes up. When everyone wants a curbside parking spot, maybe the curbside parking spot price should go up. So I know Mr. McDonald had talked about we need parking machines. So I don't know anything about parking machine technology. I don't know if it's possible to look into surge pricing for curbside parking. Given there's concerns about traffic with impending development, I don't know how many people during rush hours are just circling around trying to find a curbside parking spot instead of just going directly to the parking deck. So just some thoughts. I know there's some research out there. I was looking, I think San Francisco has done something like this. So a little outlandish, something to think about. Figured I'd leave it for the second public comment. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Judith Christian, Wyoming section. Thank you for your positive response about the crossings on Wyoming. To Mr. McDonald, there are no ADA accessible crossings in the area I've mentioned, except perhaps Cypress Street. So certainly, I don't anticipate that just coming in and striping. If they're going to do it, all of those should be ADA accessible, and I'm aware that that could take some time to work out. Thank you. And thank you, Mr. Stoller. As far as speeding, between 7 and 8 a.m., just a police car in Linden, you will see that, I mean, the house shakes, you know, when the cars come down from they're really flying down there between maybe 5 in the morning, 8 in the morning. So that would be something to look at. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I'll close public comment period. Any final thoughts?
Cedar is 88, but Cedar is 88, both coming up and down, so. And then for Jay, theoretically, yes, theoretically, but you know, it's you know, one pocket, the other pocket, et cetera. And then do we mind if Mike answers that question? We could answer it on March 12th, but he's here now, so.
I'm happy to. Paper Mill does. Sure.
The people that are on video.
And Mike Stotts, Executive Director of Paper Mill. I will address the one question about annual support that we receive from the state. We do receive an annual appropriation through a grant application process. It is approximately $1.1 million a year. It is for general operating support, which is what these grants solely fund. General operating support of all of the arts organizations in the state. We are also receiving some funding from the state separate from that to support our renovation project. So far, $3.75 has been committed towards this project, and we are trying to get the state to commit to it for a total of $6 million. All right.
And then, thank you, Mike. And also too, I'd like to thank everybody from Paper Mill Playhouse who came out tonight as well. Keep spending money in Millburn. We welcome you and your families to Millburn. Plenty of homes available. Spend. And to Mr. Feld, you know, I did spend the 2.5 hours excruciating long watching you today on with Judge Basamaro and your points. We appreciate the work you put in there as well, and it was riveting, so thank you.
Just following up on Dr. Kung's suggestion, you know, we put the parking deck where we could put it, and it's not, you know, people do prefer the curbside spots. So I guess a question I have, and I don't know if we have the technology that would support it, is to change the pricing so that the parking deck costs less to park it than the curbside spots.
Yep. I appreciate the comment. I think it's a good idea to look into. You know, I think that one of the things we attempted last year was just wayfinding and trying to get people to find the deck and find it easier to get there. We've opened up a lot more spots in the bottom level of the deck. So I think it's an interesting point. And I think that from a technology standpoint, from an ordinance standpoint, it's very easy to address on-street parking versus lot parking. So it's definitely something to look into.
Deputy Mayor? Excuse me.
So, Mr. Feld, I'm very glad you had your day in court. I would like to reiterate though, so everyone in the audience understands that I believe what happened today is the judge reaffirmed his earlier decision that the case that Mr. Feld brought before the town be dismissed. Now, yes, he did clarify that his ruling was very narrow, but at the end of the day, the case was dismissed. As far as the BA getting an annual review by the TC, you know, quite honestly, Mr. McDonald gets a review every single day, because if any 4 of us decide it's time for him to set sail and go elsewhere, we can make that happen. So, you know, if you look at it that way, he's constantly getting reviewed. Now, maybe it would make sense to have a formalized review process, but we'd have to take a look at, you know, what sort of metrics, you know, we'd put in there. In my experience in the professional world, those yearly performance reviews end up being kind of nonsense, right? you end up having some sort of scale to grade people on in a bunch of different categories. And depending who the person is doing the reviewing, that scale can vary from year to year. So it's something we can look into, but I don't know that it's necessary, because again, we're constantly evaluating Mr. McDonald, probably much to his chagrin, but he is still here, so make of that what you will.
No pressure.
Committee will improve this?
Trust fund.
I have no.
There's still people.
Mr. McDonald, would you like to?
I'm good.
Mr. Cantor?
Thank you, Mayor. To Mr. Feld's point on the Affordable Housing Trust Fund money, the township will be taking a position on that, which is contrary to what the judge said on the bench. I think she was reacting to Fair Share Housing's position. We have a different position on that. As to the point of the third rail, public comment is not required before this committee votes on anything. It's what this committee chooses to do, to get public input before they take votes. So it's best practice. So they are doing that, but it's certainly not a requirement of the Open Public Meetings Act to do that. And to the deputy mayor, I think maybe we should speak with our labor council on evaluations and annual evaluations and the importance of doing them. So somebody has a personnel file and a record. So if action is taken by this committee, whatever employee that is, they have an understanding why that action was taken. It also has improvement points and objectives and things that they're doing well and things that they're not doing well. And I think that maybe that's something we should talk to our labor council about if it's not happening.
Yeah, and I didn't in any way mean to suggest,
It's actually, I think it's a very important process for public employees, especially if there's a discussion as to, the committee's opinion on a certain employee. I think giving them metrics and what they're doing well and what they can improve on is an important process for an employee.
Do you do that in the other towns that you are the attorney for? I mean, does that happen?
Yes.
It does.
Yeah, and I tend to agree, because all of the managers we have of different companies and such, it's great to have that constant interaction and room for enhancement, room for performance, what's working, what's not working, et cetera. So the constant dialogue.
Yeah, and also from a litigation perspective, protects the township.
I just want to take the opportunity talking about parking downtown, just to remind, if they're listening, our commercial property owners and our store owners and the employees not to park on Milburn Avenue and to save those spots for the people that are coming to get their hair cut or their nails done or whatever else.
And one other comment too is shop local. As I speak to the local proprietors, and these guys are working hard for us, and when Restaurant Week comes up, and also if you park in that deck, you're not gonna wreck your rims on your car as well. So that's another thing about parking in that parking deck.
May I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
So moved.
May I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.